Well, hello, and welcome to your weekly dose of higher consciousness. I'm your happy host and trumpeter of truth, Liz Garcia. And every week I put this podcast and videocast together to help you, my listeners and viewers, raise your level of consciousness, let go of lower levels of consciousness and buried and suppressed emotions that are holding you back and blocking you from experiencing inner joy. And my overall vision is to raise the level of consciousness of the planet from its current level of 207, which is positively aspect oriented, by the way, whether you see that in the news or not, to 250 on the map of consciousness, which is the level of neutrality. And I'm sure that your mind would be like, why would I want to be neutral on anything? You have your positions and you want to hold on to your positions and you know you're right. And I want to let you know that is not the truth. There is far more, significantly more power in being neutral and holding your own in regards to the confidence you have of your own beliefs and thoughts, allowing for the possibility that you don't have the full picture. So today's topic is all about the power of being neutral and my own experience with stepping into neutrality. I'm going to share with you today. But before we get started, we want to thank our happy host, our happy sponsor, the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, which is an online directory and portal for all things mind, body, spirit, health. So you can connect with alternative, holistic, and transformational professionals like energy healers, medical intuitives, functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, transformational coaches, holistic marketing and business coaches, all kinds of different categories of professionals that we serve under the umbrella of the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. You're also going to find awesome weekly online events that are brought to us by renowned experts in their, in whatever field of subject matter they're expert in the realm of mind, body, spirit, and health from all over the world. And we partner with the Shift Network in providing these events. Well, we're an affiliate partner of the Shift Network, and we like to share the events because they really are aligned with our intention to raise the level of consciousness of the world and shift you as an individual in one way or another, whichever, whatever interests you. So highly encourage you to go to our events page because we have at least 6 to 8 events a month, 1 to 2 a week, and they're all super cool and really unusual. So if you want to check that out, go check out our event page. And we're also curating really interesting online courses that are related to mind, body, spirit, and health and transformation in one way or another. So you're going to find our Lighthouse library of online courses. And I'm also starting to curate some professional certification courses and continuing education courses. And if you can do some super cool course that qualifies for continuing education credits, why not do it? As opposed to something that you're really not that passionate about. So that's our sponsor, the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com. I invite you and encourage you to go check it out. It's a rather beautiful website, and I love everyone that's a part of it. So I have a format that I follow every week, and I'm kind of liking it, so I'm going to stick with it. So my intention, or the tagline for your weekly dose of higher consciousness, is simple steps for how to be happy and love yourself. And those simple steps involve understanding levels of consciousness and how to let go of buried, suppressed, and repressed emotions, which is the lower levels of consciousness. Because when you understand the map and you understand that holding on to those things is a negative attractor field for you, it's a negative and downward pulling attractor field, just like a toilet bowl. I like to call it, I think Dr. Hawkins also likened it to crabs in a bucket. So that the crabs are like grabbing at you and want to pull you down, come down to my level, right? You have power to not join that crabs in the bucket, and you wouldn't know it until you understand levels of consciousness and where true power really exists, and how you can let go of your family of crabs in the bucket. So as part of that intention, I start off every podcast and videocast with one of Dr. Hawkins, because everything I'm sharing is based on the teachings of Dr. David R. Hawkins. And if you don't know anything about him, you can Google him on YouTube and watch some of his videos. He's a delight, and he's brilliant, and he's of extremely high consciousness, whether you're aware of it or not. And he's got a dozen or more books that I refer to throughout all the podcasts. And if this is your first time to the podcast, I'm going to recommend you go back and look at the foundational basics episodes 1 through 10. Each one of them is going to set the foundation for understanding what the heck am I talking about, and how can you align with true power, true love, true joy, true fulfillment in life without having to be a saint. Yeah, you can do this. So I'm going to always encourage you to go back to some of the other videos and podcasts to understand what I'm talking about, so that you can start to align yourself with the truth of where true power really exists. So Dr. Hawkins has something called the Book of Slides. And it was put together by his followers throughout the years, because he passed in 2012. And it's a complete collection of his lecture slides from 2002 to 2011. And part of those slides has what's called 101 Ways to Happiness. And since part of my intention is to help you understand how to be happy, I want to share his 101 Ways to Happiness, one every week. So this week we're up to number 12. And what 101 Ways to Happiness on checklist number 12 is understanding practical reality versus fantasy and glamour of success. So what does that mean? Practical reality versus fantasy of glamour of success. So I'm going to read what the passage has to say about it and take it right from the horse's mouth, because it's well written here. So we're talking about practical reality versus fantasy and glamour and success, glamour of success, as in Hollywood success and TV star success, which is symbolic. It is symbolic only, and has to do with our projecting value onto it. So anytime you project value onto something, it's kind of a fantasy or glamorization of that thing you're projecting it on, especially when it comes to the success of, celebrity success. That's a projection of thinking that has some value. And our society obviously puts value on it. So you think you got to go with the herd of sheep, go with the lemmings, jump off, is that really a value? I mean, certainly there's more than enough celebrities you actually can admire, and they set examples for us, and they understand they need to be the change you want to see in the world. Celebrities of higher consciousness understand, innately, intuitively know, all right, I've been given this gift of celebrity, and I want to do the best I can to project to be someone worth being of value to somebody. So it is not that a person has stardom or money or anything like that. It is that you have projected desirability onto it. In and of itself, it has no attraction. Nothing in this world has any attraction unless you project attractiveness onto it. It is that attribute that you have projected onto it that makes it desirable. The main thing is to pursue a thing because that is what you are. If you are studious, then being a studious person is what you are. The thing is to enjoy the process of life, and enjoy the various stages of life. It is fun to be a kid, it's exciting to be an adolescent, and it's great to be a young adult. Middle age has many wonderful things about it. Older age is self-rewarding as you are too old to give a rap about anything anymore. So I love that. And this is kind of comes right after last week's, which was be pleased with the direction or alignment of your life instead of just completion. So this has to do with, you know, you're projecting something on somebody else that you think has value, you're giving it value. What if you give something that you love value instead and enjoy the process of getting to wherever it's leading you, right? You're a magnetic attractor for your future. What are you putting your attention on? And enjoy the whole process as you go. And then you'll start to see the fruits of your enjoyment of the process, because this is where gratitude and appreciation becomes manifest. You hear it all the time. If you appreciate something today, I love and appreciate that I get to do this podcast and videocast today and help change someone else's life, hopefully. I appreciate this opportunity to be doing what I'm doing right now. The universe can't help but respond. The universe is responsive. It's magnetic to your thoughts and feelings. And gratitude is of a very high consciousness. And with that understanding, I'm attracting higher consciousness. Not only gratitude, but everything that is aligned with higher consciousness with that intention. So, and it's a muscle. It's like going out and exercising every day. It's the same thing. Expressing higher levels of consciousness, gratitude, love, and appreciation every day is building that magnetic muscle. So right now you attract like this much maybe, but every day you're attracting more and more and more, so that you become this attractive field and this kind of divine light, which as it grows, people are going to see it on you. They're like, and they're not going to know what it is, but they're just going to want to hang out with you. So build the muscle of love and appreciation. And if you're holding on to negativity, which I have, and I could not appreciate or have gratitude for anything, that's why you got to learn to let go of what's keeping you from feeling. And I'm finally in a place where I can do it every day and feel like I'm being honest with myself and truly appreciating, enjoying life in general. So it takes time, and I hear it all the time. I get spiritual guidance. I hear it. It's called clairaudience. I hear it takes time to do this. So it's not a quick fix. You've got to be diligent, and you got to practice like an Olympian. like an Olympic athlete. You got to be willing to do the work. And the work is become conscious of your thoughts and your feelings, and remembering to be grateful as best you can wherever you're at in the process of your life. So that's today's 101 Ways to Happiness number 12. And next up every week is I love to share my weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz. And I give you 3 things to think about. And I ask you, what do you think is of higher consciousness? And just so you know, just because something is of higher consciousness does not mean it's better. It's just a different level of consciousness. And it has a different attractor field, and it has the power to do things in different ways. So this week we're looking at public service organizations. And all of these are of higher consciousness and serve their communities and the world in significant ways. So which one do you think is of highest consciousness? 4-H clubs, Doctors Without Borders, the organization Doctors Without Borders, or YMCA and YWCA clubs? I want you to think about it. This is the purpose of this weekly quiz is to recontextualize everything you thought about what was true and what you think. This is an opportunity to align with truth and understanding where true power exists. So all of those organizations are super powerful and provide significant benefit to their communities and the world, because it's a rippling effect, these organizations. And at the end I say, you know, I've always wondered to myself, where do you got to wonder where to donate money. Where do I feel like donate money? Okay, it makes sense to donate money where the organization is of higher consciousness, because it kind of calibrates the consciousness of the entire organization, which includes financing, administration, how it affects, you know, how it operates in general. It's covering all of it. So it's a good idea to find an organization of higher consciousness and feel good about donating to that. So I want you to think about that. Feel your way into it, what feels like it's of higher consciousness, of highest consciousness, and then I'll give you the answer at the end. So I'm going to take a quick sip here before we get started with our topic of the day, which is the level of consciousness of being neutral, and how it's a superpower, really. Okay. So once a month, I wanted to cover one of the levels of consciousness that you can find on Dr. Hawkins' Map of Consciousness. And I'm always referring to the Map of Consciousness, which this is what the Map of Consciousness looks like for those of you watching on video. And as you can see, on those of you that can see it, there's 6 columns. And at each level of consciousness that Dr. Hawkins has put in, you know, kind of made a header category of consciousness, there's 6 columns, and the levels, the different columns are the process, the emotion, the logarithmic calculation of the map, like what log is this level of consciousness at, meaning 10 to the x power is what a log is on the map. So the level of consciousness of neutrality is 250, which is 10 to the 250th power. And then the 4th column is the actual name of the level. And then there's a column on self-view and God view. And next week, we're going to talk about self-view. I already did the God view 2 or 3 episodes ago, because you want to understand how, and it's really saying, how are you perceiving God? What's your perception of God at the level of consciousness that you are operating at? And what's important to understand, this is your perception. If you perceive that God is loving, you're coming from a level of consciousness that perceives that way. God, by the way, is infinitely loving and compassionate. And if you're perceiving that God doesn't exist at all, it's not true. It's only that you're perceiving that way, and it's your choice to perceive that way, and you'll have experiences, and you'll be in an attractor field that perceives that way. Everything that all your thoughts and beliefs are creating this field of attraction that's going to give you the experience of perceiving God in that way, which there is no judgment or criticism of that, because who are we to judge the experience of God, right? God is everything, that all being, including you and me. Who are we to judge God, who is here for eternity and a day, wanting to experience itself in many different ways? And one of those ways is to create an attractor field of perception where you would perceive that God doesn't exist. That's a legitimate experience as an eternal soul. It really is. When you understand that we're here for forever and a day, you're also, each one of us is providing contrast for another. An infinite field of possibilities is created on the planet that we live in and in the universe in general. So there's no judging what level of consciousness you're at all, because you don't understand the greater context that you're operating from. You're serving the whole by being who you are. Now, if you're not enjoying what's going on, then I'm here to help you kind of shift and understand how you can shift into a level of enjoyment of your life and perceiving joyfully, and perceiving from a positive aspect oriented point of view. All right. So we're going to talk about neutrality. And my throat is super dry today. And I live in Colorado in the high desert mountains just outside of Aspen. Not to name drop or anything, but I'm kind of la-di-da about living outside of Aspen. I love that town. Okay, and listeners, I need to stop and take a drink. That's why there's silence and clicking ice cubes. All right, so let's go to the map of consciousness. Today's level is neutrality. And I discovered neutrality before I understood the map of consciousness, decades before I understood the map of consciousness, when I was a teenager. And I was always in a battle with my mother like this. It's like always she's always trying to controlling somebody. And there's most of the planet want to control our own life because we think that's the only way we're going to control our own life is to force control, to not let go of anything. And we're going to control everything and everybody because we want everything a particular way. Now, that way of being, and perfectionism is also a controlling way of being, is of lower consciousness. It's not a judgment. It's just a helping you understand that it's a downward pulling energy that's destructive, to always want to control this, that, and the other thing, or be in control of another person. It is destructive by nature. It's not a judgment. It's an impersonal attractor field for which those energies are operating. It's force. It's not power, it's force. So I came into the awareness of the freedom of letting go of having to control or having to be right with my mother. And I finally let go and let her win. I'm like, you got it. You can have your way. I'm okay with that. And when I let go of that, I stepped into freedom. And I just felt it. I'm like, whoa, look at that. I didn't know map of consciousness. I didn't know anything about letting go. But I made the decision as a teenager to stop the madness. And I let go. I'm like, oh, it was enormously freeing. And if you look at the map of consciousness, right, having to be right, having to be in control, having to be perfectionist is all at the level about 175 on the map, whereas letting go and jumping into neutral is 250. That's a quantum leap, 10 to the 175th power, which is by nature negative and downward pulling, is considerably less power than 250, which is 10 to the 250th power, which is positive aspect and upward pulling. So one's pulling you down, the other one's pulling you up. And if you stay below 200, you're not going to break free. You got to break free in your courage to do that. So neutral is a super freeing level of consciousness, and it's powerful. So let's talk about neutrality as a level of consciousness. And we're going to go through the columns so you understand the process. The process in being neutral is release. That's pretty much what I just described to you. When I release the need to be in battle with my mother and let her be right, I release the need to be right. That I stepped into freedom. That's the process. The emotion is trust. And it's like real trust. It's not like naive trust, although there could be some naivete because there's much higher levels of consciousness to step into in regards to the level of trust, but it's trusting. And your self-view is satisfactory. You're not beating up on yourself. You're content. You're satisfied with who you are, and you don't have to keep judging. And, you might do a little bit of that, but it's not incessant like people below 200 that are continually judging and criticizing themselves and want to be right about everything as more of a protective thing. It's more of a, having to be right is dealing with the awareness that you are worthy and you know you're worthy, but you're forcing yourself to try to prove it while the unworthiness is still running within you. So like it's this battle with unworthiness and worthiness, but you don't understand how to let go of the unworthiness that's running within you, which is one of the reasons why I put this podcast and video cast together. We got to understand that's the deep seed, that's the root to most of our suffering. It's this ludicrous belief of our unworthiness. So, but when you jump into neutrality, and this is, I'll get to this in a second, you feel that your self-view is satisfactory. I mean, you could aspire to more, but you're good with where you're at. You're not beating yourself up as much anymore. And your God view is that God is enabling, which is, it's all the same energy level at neutrality. Enabling and satisfactory and trust and release, they all have the same energy. That's why they're at neutral. So God is enabling. But you may think, I think God is more than that. And I understand God is more than that, which is, we're all a mixed bag of everything. You know, you're going to be at a level of consciousness of God, maybe that's up higher than your view of yourself, which is likely. Our views of ourselves are like anemic, to say the least. And there's a way to let go of these lower level beliefs so that you can step into worthiness and satisfaction with who you are and things like that. So when it comes to letting go of lower level emotions, I always have said that you got to step into courage on everything. If you want to stop spinning around with the crabs in a bucket and the downward pull, you've got to step into courage on something. Though many of us, and I found this to be true with myself, have more power than that, and I'd recommend you use it because there's more power, where if you're spinning something negative about yourself, decide to go neutral on it. That's a huge power play, if you ask me. You can jump right over courage, because let's say you already have courage. You're not afraid to go neutral on it, because you understand it's not going to kill you one way or the other if you let go of the negative judgment of yourself, the criticizing of yourself. Just stop doing it as you're witnessing it. You're like, you know what? Liz said go neutral. I can do that, right? I don't have to do, and I don't want you to not deal with it by saying, I'm going to go neutral and bury it. You're not going to do that. You're just going to come into neutral, and the energy of it is going to help the shift because there's more power. And your intention is I'm willing to be neutral on this topic and allow it to kind of, fade away by coming into neutral. Use the power of neutral to help that lower level vibe. The resistance will start to loosen and get less and less and less. So, affirmation. This is your homework for the week. Find yourself in a resistant state, especially if you're starting to criticize yourself. Maybe let's stick with dealing with ourselves, because I feel like if the power is in dealing with yourself, not trying to fix others. The power is in bearing witness to how you're feeling and how you're reacting to things and how you're resisting things. And let's say you have a situation come up at work, at home, wherever you are, on a team, where someone is presenting something to you that you react to and you resist. What if you say, I'm going to go neutral on this, right? You're just going to go neutral. You're going to let it go. And you're going to feel like you're the lesser person for letting something go. If you're dealing it with somebody else, if this isn't a situation with somebody else, you are not the lesser person. You are standing in significantly more power to let something go. And Dr. Hawkins repeats through many of his YouTube videos and lectures, the biggest obstacle blocking our experience of inner joy and happiness and love and fulfillment in life is positionalities. Positionalities are the devil, if you want to call it that. They really are. the devil within you to want to have a position about anything. And you can be smart and confident, but you don't have to be right. You can be willing to accept that there's a greater context of everything. Huge. The context of what brought you here today and what brought me here today is way beyond the thought of the mind, thinking you know it all, right? You don't know it all. I don't know everything about you. Every thought, every experience that you've had throughout your life brings you here today. And to accept that you don't know it all or understand another person's journey is huge. To let it go and be willing to come into understanding and actually listen to somebody else, listen to what they're saying, right? So positionalities, an affirmation is to be, I'm willing to let go of positionalities on anything. And maybe you have to start with one thing, right? So the exercise for the week is to find something that triggers you or thought, you find yourself feeling a particular way, and be willing to step into neutral about it and forgive yourself for not knowing any better. All right, so I'm willing to let go of positionalities in my life and become neutral and be neutral. And you're grateful for the alignment with the power level of neutrality and the higher consciousness level of being neutral. That's the exercise and the affirmations for today. Every week it's going to be about stopping the resistance. When you hear people that you want to resist everything online, you know, in the news, it's all about resistance. It's like, that's effed up if you understand consciousness. Resistance is all of lower consciousness, period, the end. You got to step into power and understanding and compassion and allow others to be in the resistance. It's okay that they're there, but I don't recommend you join them. Go neutral on it. Be neutral and understand you do not know the greater context of the universe. We're part of it. We're part of the greater context. Okay, so let's go to the answer to today's weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz. And hopefully you didn't have much time to think about it because you were listening to how to be neutral and how to step into real power and freedom. I'm talking freedom is at neutral, big time. I don't have to jump to 1,000 to be free. You can jump to 250 and be free. That's not a big ask. And that's why I put it out there that my overall vision is for the planet to shift to 250, which is a huge ask when you understand consciousness. It's not essential, but if we get there, woohoo. And as more and more people understand and put into context levels of consciousness, it's going to create this like quantum morphogenic field is what it's called. Just like breaking the 4-minute mile. When the 4-minute, you know, for a long time, there was a belief that you couldn't run faster than a 4-minute mile until somebody did. Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. And there's a belief going on that our level of consciousness is getting worse. It's not, by the way. It jumped in 1986 from below 200, I think 190, up to 207, which is quantum, by the way. So my intention is to change the belief that there's any limits that we can have. And it's helpful to have others understand and bring the understanding to the world. I mean, this should be a course in class, understanding consciousness. Like it could start as little kids, because little kids understand love. They're like, oh, love and happiness. I want to be that, right? They want to be that. It's a great place to start the understanding of levels of consciousness. And you make it fun for kids. So my ask to the universe and to you, because if more of us do it, the faster it's going to go, to have a planet that's neutral, 250, that's huge. I mean, that's like having a body that's neutral, balanced, a balanced planet. There's going to be, there's going to be levels of consciousness all over the map for sure, but it's going to be more balanced. And life is intended to be a contrast. That's why this planet exists. One reason is to provide contrast to the spirit. Well, let's see what what can we make of this? What can come of this in our evolution of consciousness? So my ask you guys, you got to join me, is to go to neutral. Come into the land of neutral with me and see how freeing it can be. All right. The answer to the quiz, which is of highest consciousness? Which public service organization is of highest consciousness? They are all of super high consciousness, by the way. But the lowest level of lowest level of consciousness is a 4-H club at 370 on the map of consciousness. That is not shabby at all. And this is an organization that cares about giving young people the tools to be leaders, to take responsibility for their lives, to understand compassion and community and supporting each other in the world as a member of 4-H. And I was a member of the 4-H. And now that I'm saying this, I think we already did this quiz last time. Shoot. Okay, we'll do it again. Doesn't matter. And then the next level, that was last week's quiz. I got to keep track of what I'm doing. That's okay. We'll do it again because it's likely you may not have heard last week. So we're going to do it again because it's good to hear things twice. You really get it. Next on the map of consciousness is YWCA and YMCA organizations. They calibrate at 380 on the map of consciousness. They too are promoting how to help yourselves, how to be productive, responsible individuals in the community and have a ripple effect on your life and those around you in positive ways. And last on the map of consciousness is Doctors Without Borders at 500. And the more I say this, the more I know I just did this last week. I got to follow my schedule. That's okay. So 500 is the level of consciousness of Doctors Without Borders, which is huge. This is the land of lovingness, loving about helping people around the world that need medical assistance immediately. And the Doctors Without Borders organization is intended to help. It's an independent global community that responds to medical emergencies around the world. So one thing I didn't say yesterday, but I got it today as I was writing our post on our weekly quiz. I've always wondered, who would I want to donate money to, and how does it feel, and do I trust this organization to use my money properly, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And it came to me as I was looking at the levels of consciousness, and I went to these people's websites and they're looking for donations. I'm like, hell yes, this is the type of organization that's calibrated to be of higher consciousness. You'd want to invest your money there, knowing the ripple effect it's making on the lives of the people that are in it, the communities that they affect, and the world. So that's it. Sorry for repeating, but it's good to know. And I'm glad I kind of came up with this new twist on understanding levels of consciousness. Where do you want to donate money? These are awesome organizations to consider donating your money to, because they're going to affect someone else's life, and that will contribute to my mission or vision of raising the level of consciousness of this planet to 250. So if you like what's going on here, or you have some questions or ideas about future podcasts or videocasts, I want you to leave comments wherever you're finding us, or you can email me a question or ideas of what you'd like me to talk about to liz@trumpeteroftruth.com. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, go to trumpeteroftruthradio.com or our YouTube channel at trumpeteroftruthtv.com. And share away, my friends. Get this out there. I need, a lot of people need to get this message if we're going to shift our level of consciousness. You alone have the power to have a ripple effect by changing your own. And if you go back to my recent podcast and videocast on how to be the change, I talk about the significance you as an individual can make when you decide to be the change and let go of lower levels of consciousness that are keeping you from being the change you want to see in the world. As always, love is the truth. at the level of 500 on the map of consciousness, which is a quantum leap above the mind. The mind is in the 400s. 1 point on the map of consciousness from 499 to 500 is a quantum leap in awareness of the spiritual domain. The spiritual dimension is the truth. The greater context of creator is up here, not here in the mind. The mind is powerful though. So just because you're not aware, and I would not have believed that love was the truth until I came into this understanding. And now that I understand that love is the truth, my intention is to be loving and allow the ripple effect of that intention to affect every area of my life. It's a ripple effect, totally, that power. Imagine an atomic bomb of love going off within you, boom. It's going to ripple out in every part of your life in a quantum way, being loving. Decide to be loving and see how that affects you. You can't do that though until you get rid of the negative stuff that's keeping you in doubt and like, forget about it. I've been there too. I would not have believed love is the truth, but I'm telling you it is. Use that mind of yours and the understanding that it is. And I'll see you next week. I think we're going to talk about self-view in general and to understand where you are on the map of consciousness in regards to yourself. So we're going to do a little test on that. And I want you to feel your way through it. And then we're going to talk about that self-view. See you then. Signing off from your trumpeter of truth, Lucy Garcia.